Director Podcast. I'm Matthew Moore. I made me search in his bosom for a ribbon. Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, Matthew. How are you?
That's my line, right?
Yeah.
I should be in a Kubrick movie. Long day of meetings for Derek to show up late to the podcast. Ridiculous. Anyways, speaking of which, also joining us is a guy who I'd very much like to shoot a documentary film on, awarded with honorable mention prize for, Derek Schwarzinski. Derek, how's it going?
Pretty good. It's nice to know my honorableness is mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, particularly because I feel like there's some parts of your life that are probably pretty boring. You know, like you kind of sometimes just sit around playing video games.
Indeed.
Derek, we're gonna really go into the essence of what is Derek.
Oh, that's a big question.
Before we do that, let's go into the essence of what are the two movies for this podcast. Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors. Barry Lyndon. This is the round of 8. The winner of this goes on to the semifinals. You guys might just let me get Woody Allen to the semifinals. What a world. Anyways, this is a film very difficult to describe because it's like two plots and interpretation of the movie, which one's more important, but about a guy who the woman's having an affair with to hide up the affair, and also about a guy who's trying to have an affair with the woman but is not being successful. Two different storylines. Barry Lyndon is about, also very hard to describe, a boy who's a man, I guess, who's making his way along the world, first in the army, and then eventually he gains a fortune and then loses it all. Lyndon, which is about this man who first joins the army, off of gambling, marries a beautiful woman, just for it all to fall apart, loses his child. Stepson challenges him to a duel, which he lets the stepson win because he's kind of really depressed and doesn't know what to do with his life. Which of the two films do you guys want to talk about first?
I say Barry Lyndon.
Okay, sure. What did you guys think of Barry Lyndon?
I'm
gonna say I can start us off.
Okay.
Not the best podcasting.
Go for it.
Comment directly about Barry Lyndon, but we are now into the third, fourth for some of these directors of their movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Patterns. I guess this is Kubrick's fourth movie we've watched. And I've also watched Full Metal Jacket, which as you wouldn't mention, but I think it's very relevant in this conversation. Sometimes has really significantly slower second halves of his films.
You think the second half was slower than the first?
Works. It goes way slower. Because
yeah,
I don't know. I
definitely.
guess like the point is, what's gonna happen? Like it's not like way, but it's just like I mean, it's definitely prettier. It's like I think the second half is also prettier, which kind of makes up for the slowness. Oh, narratively not engaging, especially because all of the characters.
That's interesting. I didn't feel that way at all. In fact, I felt like, I don't know. I guess like I thought the very beginning of Barry Lyndon was actually like the first like half hour, the first hour is like kind of weak, and then but the second part of the first half like picks up and gets pretty exciting. But then I thought the second half of the movie, like as a whole, like after intermission, was like a lot more like consistent. Like it had a much more like steady pace.
Really, you think the stuff with like him like dueling the guy and then joining the army, all these things are like boring? I find this very interesting.
Mm,
because they kind of set Barry up to be like this very like sad, sappy sort of guy.
Yeah.
Like shouldn't win anything, right? But
Yeah.
it's kind of cool and shot in these very exciting ways. Like that fist fight with the guy in the army is so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like the second half, like it's a bunch of aesthetic shots, sure, but like for so long, especially because like some of these aesthetic shots, I don't know, don't really add much to it for me. Pretty, you know.
I guess maybe the reason why I felt that is because during like the first section of the movie, you don't really know where any of it's going. It's just kind of like meandering around. So I didn't feel like there was any like narrative progression as much. Like he's pretty much just like he leaves town, he gets robbed, he joins the army, some other stuff happened. Like he kind of just like bounces around, and it's not like I don't feel like we're going anywhere necessarily, or at least like I don't know where we're going. So it's like it's harder to feel invested.
Why is it that hard to feel invested in though? I feel like it's like actually really don't understand like how why not knowing where the story's going means that it's harder to be invested in. I feel like it's just as easy to be invested in because again it's curious like what's going to happen to Barry, like where is this going, you know, how does he become Barry Lyndon? That's like a question that entered my mind as well.
Yeah, that's true. Like I can definitely like see where you're coming from on that. I just personally didn't feel that way.
Where you stand on this?
I don't know. I didn't think the second half was especially boring, but I think that's because from part one I pretty much came to expect it to be very slow,
Sure.
so it kind of set it up that way. So during the second half, it was kind of just like more. I was able to appreciate more of an aesthetic idea, and it kind of just lent itself to my appreciation of it. Like instead of it being boring, it became tranquil almost, and it just like an aesthetic of its own that I could appreciate.
Well, and maybe some of that tranquility is because weird word to use because like what does boring mean, right? But certainly like less suspenseful. Second half is right. Moment you know
Yeah,
exactly what's
well,
gonna
it's
happen
kinda
next.
That's kind of interesting because it feels like more the first half is where Barry's having things done to him, and
Yeah,
the second half is kind of him trying to do things and it failing,
it's like him.
and then the consequence of that.
First half is like him failing upwards, and the second half is like him succeeding into a spiral, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of seeing that movement becoming like almost like a glacier down, just slowly, was kind of satisfying in its own right. Because honestly, I don't think I've seen someone pull that off that way.
Sure, but I do think like typical narrative would tell you that you want to kind of want to have the suspense, right, to be like right before the end. Maybe you have a little bit of like denouement. I never understood that word. Denouement, denouement,
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
denouement. Okay, I'll take it. Bit of that at the end, right? But it feels like to the suspense ends once he guy
When he what?
with the guy whose name I also won't try to pronounce.
Oh, Chevier.
Yeah, I guess.
Chevy or yeah, something
Wasn't
like
like
that.
the Chevalier.
Speak
Chevalier, yeah.
previous Kubrick movies. That's the
Bye-bye.
Clockwork Orange guy.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
The one that
Mr.
like
Alexander.
yeah, the one that tried to like kill Alex because he like assaulted his wife.
Alexander.
Oh.
Very easy to remember because it's also Alex. Fun facts.
Yep, Patrick McGee.
Just once you know it.
But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I really like I'm kind of with Caleb. I like the second half more simply because I just kind of the first half set me up for my expectation of like the second half and the kind of like I don't know the classic tragedy of it, but non-classic in like the format of it was interesting for me instead of it being like a Hamlet nail biter. It was more of like just a slow burn
even like I'm taking enjoyment out of it. I'm saying, particularly from like a narrative suspense perspective, right? I think we'll talk about enjoyment later because I do think you're making a fair point. I'm just saying from purely narrative, like suspense perspective, it definitely is like less intriguing narratively in the second half.
I don't know if intriguing, I but it would definitely, if you're talking about like pure suspense, I definitely would say it has less suspense than the first half. Yeah.
Those are pretty interchangeable words, right? Like, or not
I
interchangeable
don't think suspense would be makes it intriguing or interesting, but for me at least, because like what's interesting about the second half
the narrative,
is
purely the narrative of the second. I'm just talking about the narrative.
okay.
But I mean, like, I feel like the relationship between Barry and his stepson is intriguing, but it's not suspenseful. You know what I mean?
Is it intriguing?
Yeah.
Because it's like plays out very simply. I guess at the end you kind of get this moment,
Yeah,
like
I was thinking of more of like the end, like
sure,
how it
but
ends basically.
it's a
The
it's
kind of like dynamic where the stepson is both afraid of him
mhm.
and like I don't know, in like a simple moment where he just kind of like gives up, he becomes like more dishonest than Barry does. Is the moment where he wins is kind of interesting.
But how would you say he becomes dishonest?
Well, Barry basically like gives him like it's a free draw. They both go their separate ways, and it's Bullington being like, "No, I haven't gotten my satisfaction yet,"
Mm-hmm.
and then like shooting him. That's obviously like a gentleman would be like, "Oh, this dude just gave me a free pass.
Yeah.
Let's just call this a draw." Which is
Oh,
what Barry's
cool.
doing. He's being a gentleman by not shooting.
Yeah, but I think like the whole I get why I don't think it makes him dishonest or like negative because I think him doing that is basically the same like youthful passion as what got Barry into all this in the first place, right? Like he's gonna challenge this Quinn guy to a duel, even if it's really dumb, because he's just like a young man and he's ready to go at it and like die for what he believes.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's an interesting contrast because that's the moment when Barry starts like failing. That's like his first failure, and this is Bullington's first like success.
I
Yeah,
guess
well,
Caleb,
that's
but like there's also something way more perverse about like what Bowlington's doing. Because with Barry, it's for a young woman, you know.
oh yeah,
For
no, for sure, yeah, and then for with this Bullington guy, it's his mom, which is like
yeah,
very like incestuous in a way.
yeah,
But this whole movie is basically about like the circle of, or like the cycle of life, and so it makes sense that like how you said, Derek, like Barry's like great defeat comes at this younger man's success because like he's an old man now, and now it's time for a young man to come up and do his own thing and basically take his place, and just like sort of like rising and falling motion mimicking like the growth and then death of all of us, like just this life cycle. We're going to be born and then have our
tragedy of
time
all
in the
of us.
sun, and then we're going to die.
Barry loses it once he realizes like the tragedy of like everyone, you know, of all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole cycle thing, I think was really cool. The parallels between um, the Bollington and Mary Lyndon. But we said that Bollington is incestuous, but so was Barry, considering he was doing all of this for his cousin.
He owes that though. Look, with cousin stuff happens a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
less
I think
incestuous, but I think it's still pertinent.
I think he's definitely, or Kubrick is definitely making also a comment, and Barry, even though he's like the poorer level than Bullington, is also still, even like he's experiencing these higher like class things, and he's also incestuous. He's kind
Yeah,
of just like, I don't
but
know.
I don't know. I think you because there's also like a lot of other different other reasons why Bowlington is like more perverse in my opinion. Like Miss Lyndon
Like what?
is Bowlington's mom is pretty harsh to Bowlington, right? She's like we see her treating him that lovingly. Pretty much every time she comments on him, she talks about how disappointing she is of him, having to stop this behavior, these sorts of things, right? Brady, she had like actively seduced Barry, you know?
That's true.
Oh
or
yeah.
like a perversion of his mind. So, like,
True.
like,
I also think Bullington, like, when he does the duel, he like is the afraid one, and he's trembling, and they have this whole long drawn out scene of him like throwing up from fear, as opposed to like Barry, even when he was young and he was dueling an officer, the officer was the one that was afraid. So Barry Lyndon's basically always the guy with like the big dick energy, and his opponent is always afraid in like every circumstance.
Yeah, and yet he still fails. So it's kind of just like, eh.
but does he fail? That's a harsh word.
I think he fails. He loses his leg, ends up exiled from
On purpose, though, right?
the state.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's on purpose that he failed to be like he cries when he loses his leg and shit.
I mean,
I
it's
don't
pretty
think
hard not to
he-
cry. I don't think it's like. But I mean, he lets him
I
win.
mean, that's definitely a sign of defeat.
I mean, yeah, he loses, but he definitely has the big dick energy there, though. Like, he's not the one that's like trembling and throwing up. Like, he's just like facing
Yeah,
it like a
sure, but he
man.
still loses. Is my point. He may, but he's still the loser. Bullington still wins. He gets everything that he wants, and Barry loses everything that he has.
Yeah, but it's
So,
still
like-
it's still like really important though that like this like dueling scene is like literally like 10 minutes long, and it's important that like Barry like fires his shot into the ground because even though it's not his choice per se to lose the duel, it's through an act that he deliberately chose to do that ends up resulting in his defeat. You know what I mean? It's not because he wasn't beaten because his opponent was so talented or great at dueling, because we even see him like mess up in cocking the pistol and it going off randomly. Like, it's like a noble defeat, I guess.
But it's still a defeat.
But yeah,
So he still fails. Even he's set up. So even though
fail was a harsh word. He loses. He doesn't like fail implies that, like he gets a result that he didn't expect, but like
I don't think he expected to be exiled and like lose everything.
yeah, I don't think he did either. But the whole point of saying this is that like is about reinforcing like the young kid's like perverseness and how he's like not as much of a like a real man, I guess, as Barry Lyndon is, because Barry Lyndon's always the guy who just like faces the duel. You know, like he just takes it. He doesn't shake. He's being like all masculine about it. Whereas this other guy is
And
like,
that's kind of
you know,
well, that's the dichotomy between like the first part and the second part. He like builds up to that during the first part, and in the second part, that becomes his defeat. Is that he's too noble for his own good, and he ends up getting shot and exiled, and etc.
noble
true.
though, is he? Why do
It's a noble defeat in Caleb's
I
word.
think
I wouldn't say he's particularly noble in general, but at least in this moment compared to Bullington, he's more noble, and that is because he's had like the experience of dueling with like the officers and shit, and like
but it's not because of that.
war and
Because
whatnot.
oh yeah.
even when he was young and he dueled the officer was the one that was shaking, and he was the one that was being. That's like the primary difference between these two dueling scenes, right? Is because in both, like you would think, like, oh, it's the circle of life, right? Like the young man will be scared, the old man will be Chad, or the other way around. But in both cases, it's Barry Lyndon that's being confident, whether he's the young man or the old man, and it's always his opponent that's trembling.
Yeah, and they're always his opponents, and somehow in both duels, his opponents are the ones that end up with what they want, because they're less honorable than he is in the duel.
That's true.
I don't see it as a thing of honor though. I guess. Like
I wouldn't say it's a thing about honor, but I think
like he
the
does this
distinction
move out
between
of
the
honor.
people.
That's what I'm trying to like say. I don't. And that's what I'm trying to, I think we interpret this differently. I don't see him shooting the pistol into the ground as like an honorable move
How is that not honorable?
because I see it as like Perry's given up on life. Like these expressions on his faces, like obviously like before this, all we see of Barry is like he's like drinking himself to death. The scene with Billington, like I don't think he cares about winning. He's getting exiled. Like that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's an honor thing. I don't think he didn't expect Billington to shoot again. It's more about Barry was the first duel, and he was almost confident that he would lose this one. You know? conversation.
I mean, maybe perhaps, but at least in this moment, compared to Bullington, the motion of your opponent misfiring and then you also magnanimously or whatever, or just like honorably. I'm just gonna use honor because I think that word fits. Shooting off into the hay is definitely the more honorable move.
I think also like killing your own stepson's probably not a good look.
Yeah.
Sure, but he also like beat him in front of everyone, which is the reason why he lost everything, right? I don't think Barry got to where he was because of I guess my point is.
No, he's not an honorable guy, but he's playing a game, right? Like, and Barry's whole thing is games. That's like the whole point. Like, that's the whole theme in this movie, right? Like, he plays card games, which is where he gets seduced by his cousin. He plays card games, which is how he becomes famous and makes his fortune. And he plays. It's not a game per se, but I think like dueling fits into this category of game. And he also did rapier dueling, like fencing. So he's all and also fist fighting. So in all of these, like, I'm just gonna call them games, but just in general, like contests or conflicts, this is where he shines, and this is like where he's always like at his peak, right? Like he beats this much larger man in the boxing ring because like he's just the guy that wins games, and like that's like the one constant thing throughout all this movie is that he's the guy that wins games, except at the very end when because he shoots off into the hay, he loses.
Yeah, because it's not nobility though. That's all those games Barry wants to win, and each one separately, he'll do whatever it takes to win. This first fight, like it's just raw passion that gets Barry the win. Second fight, it's just like his intelligence, and he's willing to like duck around this guy fighting to win. He becomes an expert swordsman to win. He cheats at these card games to win. Barry, the reason he lost this is because he doesn't have the will to win anymore.
Yeah, I like
the will thing.
I think that factors into it a lot too, right? Because like that's kind of because like this like basically even though he just loses his leg, this like symbolizes his death, like in this metaphor of like life cycle type thing. Like that's when you truly die. It's when you lose the will to live. So when he loses his will to keep on fighting in these games,
literally moving on with the leg as well, right?
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. And then in addition, I think this is backed up by like how the information is presented, right? Because the audience knows Barry loses this.
Yeah.
If it's like a noble decision, it would be presented as like more of a suspense thing, But we know that.
No, we don't know that he. No, we don't know that because I thought that he was gonna end up killing his son and having to leave on his own, just like in the beginning.
Oh, sure, but either way, I mean, we know that Barry like loses in the Gersons, like he, gets exiled, something dies alone, right?
Yeah.
Question why? I don't think the answer to why is all feel for Barry is because he was too noble.
Oh, definitely not.
He just lost focus, essentially. He lost his passion. Passion wins, right? Which is why this guy is the most ridiculous name. I keep forgetting it. Bullington. Why Bullington? Despite the fact that he is way more afraid than Barry, less competent than Barry. It's why he doesn't even know how to handle a gun. Wins because at the end he wants to win.
Yeah,
that's what true. Everything comes down to. We spent a lot of time on this scene. So what do you think of the first 3 hours of the movie?
Yeah, I thought like ever since personally I thought like everything after Lyndon getting introduced or Barry getting inducted into like the Prussian army was like pretty entertaining.
Great. Like and that is like very suspenseful, like those scenes where he's talking to the guy, captain of the Prussian army, and of course the ends with Barry's arrest was so strong. And then of course all like this spying Barry does, and earning his way back in, sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
The shots, even at the beginning, are like thinking back, are still also pretty tranquil, or what I would say was tranquil, like the second part. But the distinct like difference is that, or the contrast is between like the fight scenes. Like a lot of the times, what Kubrick will do is use shaky cam during like fights and whatnot, and it's like he'll as he uses shaky cam, he'll like make it very almost POV and personal, and it gets like really intense. And I think it's like a really interesting contrast between like the intensity of the fights, and like him, like all the serene and like tranquil shots of like, for example, the poker table shot where Barry meets Lyndon, how like slow it is, and they meet outside, and like Barry like walks up super slow, and then like grabs and reaches for her hands, like super slow, and then they slowly kiss. It's like the difference between that moment and how like low intensity that is, and how high intensity like the fights are, is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I also love that scene when he first kisses Lady Lyndon, because you can see him coming towards her like through the windows, like, but it's kind of blurry because they have like some sort of distortion effect on them, and so you kind of almost get like a little mini foreshadowing like 5 seconds before it actually happens.
I think another big difference between the beginning, the first part of the movie, and the second part of the movie is like how they present the face. Quite pinpoint exactly what it is, but shots of people, because we definitely like these beautiful landscape shots in both parts. It's like bigger wide shots, but the close-ups in the first part of the movie, kind of hard to look at. Some of them, it's a lot of like these up shots, right, of people's faces, like you see a lot of the neck, and it's like these very dirty, sweaty men, I guess. So the second half, we have like these, his beautiful wife, and gets this very like,
Yeah, that like long close up of Lady Lyndon when she's like in the tub and she looks like a doll because her face is just so completely still is such an amazing shot.
Yeah, it's another thing too, is like the stillness of the faces in the second half of the movie. Or in the first half, like you get a face and it's always like moving and there's always something going on. I don't know why this is, but I definitely noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I don't know, it seems like in the first part it just seems a lot closer. There's a lot more like solo shots of faces, and towards the end it seems like more multiple shots, like tries to capture like multiple people at once.
I also think that kind of coming back to like the whole like circle of life thing, I think that um mothers play a big part in both Bullington and Barry's lives, because Barry's mother is the reason why he kind of like throws away a lot of his fortune, because she's like, you need to get a title, da 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 da. And that's kind of what starts him like throwing away all this money. And then of course like Bullington is such a rascal because of his attachment to his mother, and so I think this kind of fits into the theme of like growth and the circle of life, because like part of like growing up is like separating yourself from your family and just like literally like exiting the mother and like casting her off and putting her behind you and being your own person. And we see two different men who are kind of like still domineered by their mothers and all the problems that causes in their
The
lives.
contrast is very important too, though, between these two, right?
Yeah.
Where Bullington almost like it probably actually isn't jealous of Barry for this reason, but it should be. Where Barry's mother to all other men so she can take care of Barry,
Yeah.
and Bullington's mother other men at the expense of Bullington.
Yeah.
I feel this is important too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it shows the importance of good parenting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Going back to my point on like the difference between the shots of like the face close-ups, I have like a specific example of what I mean, in that in like the poker scene with the Chevalier, and the like count or no, the prince, um, instead of like focusing on both of their faces at any point at once, he always like will switch between them. But at the later half in like part two, like when Barry's talking to his like birth son, it'll always be both of their faces at once. And like all other moments of confrontation, it'll be both of their faces will at least, or their heads will be both seen at the very least. Sometimes their bodies as well.
It is very interesting. But I wonder why these things are. You know what I mean?
I think because like I think the idea is that like when you're flipping back and forth between faces, it increases like the intensity of it, especially if you do it like very rapidly and frequently, and the increase in frequency is like increase intensity. But if it's just like holding like both faces at once, it's like the tension is there, but it's not increasing or decreasing. It's just very neutrally at whatever state it is.
It could also be because, like in the first half of the movie, Barry like doesn't really have any like that many connections to the people in his life. It's like he's pretty much just like a loner, like making his way through life. But then the last half of the movie is all about his relationships to his wife, his stepson, his mother, his birth son. So like it's like I guess either attempting to deliberately or just a result of like highlighting these connections in his life.
Irony there where in the scene, the face, which should be like the symbol of passion, right? It's where you see someone's emotions. You know,
What scene?
Faces, like for half the movie.
Oh yeah.
You know, this first half of the movie where Barry at least is more passionate. Faces to us, but when Barry loses passion, these faces are passion is heightened. You know, we get a lot more from them. Like one more big talking point I want to talk about this movie though, so I'm gonna move on if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's almost like another key cog to this movie. This movie feels a lot like a book, right?
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
You know,
It was based on a book.
Yeah, I know it's based. Well, yeah, but like, I mean, obviously, so is Clockwork Orange, right? But Clockwork Orange does not feel like a book to me.
Yeah, right.
Cinematic. While this is like very obviously we have this narrator, right, and talk about the importance narration plays in this movie, and then just the pace of it, right, with things slow pace like a book, which works a lot better for a book. You could argue, but it works for this movie because it works better for a book. A lot of weird reverse stuff going on. Like why? Why does he do this? You know, and it's even more ironic, right? Because in this movie that feels so much like a book, it's also titles completely devoid of text.
What's devoid of text?
Mm-hmm.
The movie, like, they'll be talking like other languages and we'll have no sort of subtitles or anything.
That's true.
And also,
and that was a cool effect too. I like that because like they're actually like extended conversations in other languages, and we just have pretty much no idea what's being said unless you understand the language.
No, it is really cool. But then also because it's so, all the picturesque shots, right? Beautiful landscapes, and these are really cool shots of Lady Lyndon. It still feels like I'm reading a book almost to me, you know?
Uh-huh.
Where things are kind of just presented and we're meant to like intuit what's going on exactly, the changes that are happening to Barry, because we don't actually, the narrator never says like, and Barry is now a lot more emotional than he used to be, or kind of just to pick up on that. The narrator almost purely gives exposition.
I think the narrator was super useful though. I like the narrator a lot, like what it did for this movie.
Why? I don't disagree with this though.
Because I feel like without it, too much stuff would just be like left vague, and also like it does some good foreshadowing.
Also, it has a couple great lines that are really funny.
Our couple. Just one.
well, a few, but specifically a couple that I wrote down because they actually make me laugh out loud. But when Barry's talking to the farm lady Lyshin, and like they finally like kiss and whatnot, and then it cuts away. The narrator says, "This heart of Lyshin's had been like many a neighboring town. It had been stormed and occupied several times before Barry came to invest it." I was
Really
like,
funny.
I was like, "Damn, dude, don't roast her."
Yeah, he's just throwing shots at her.
And then when like Barry and Lady Lyndon kiss after like the poker table for like the first time and whatnot, the narrator like immediately after when it like moves away says, "To make a long story short, 6 hours after they had met, her ladyship was in love, and once Barry was in her company, he found innumerable ways to improve his intimacy and was scarcely out of her ladyship's sight."
At the beginning, which is a bit of a tired joke probably at this point, but oh well. Where he's going, and they're talking about his father, and he's like, and there's no doubt he would have made an eminent figure in his profession, and then he immediately dies. Oh, I love him. They do the same thing in another movie, like Kind Hearts and Coronets, and it gets me every time. Yeah, the narrator is funny. Although, I don't know, I think to say like his effect is just like first thing I don't think mean to this scale, but I think it's like if Kubrick wanted to, he could have done this very easy without a narrator. You know, he's a very talented director, writer. I don't think it's fair to say that like Kubrick needs the narrator. I think in a film, at least if you're a decent writer, there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
It adds another effect. And I just like want to think about like, what makes it feel like a book, but I don't understand why they want to make it feel like a book. And what's the
I
importance?
think
of this?
some like objectivity, because obviously
Yeah.
Barry is, and none of these people are aware of the negatives and like of their actions and whatnot. So it's kind of like this narrator giving that kind of context for the audience that in some moments will give some humor, like we've pointed out, but in other moments will lend some actual like themes and whatnot. Like
And maybe
maybe
it's simple.
In a lot of cases, they
Going
don't
off
like.
of this, yeah.
There's never scenes where like Barry's like talking about his feelings or like what his intentions are. So like without the narrator, we would never really know for sure if Barry was marrying Lady Lyndon just for money or if he was actually in love, right? Like so that sort of like lets us see into his mind without having to have him like sound with the air or something and be like, "Oh yes, I really like this girl for her money."
Yeah, sure, but I don't think like having a narrator, or say this is like any like less cheap than having Barry like have some corny line about it. Exactly. Like
I think because of how Kubrick set it up, that is the case. Because we've already seen at this point, like what he's the narrator being kind of a dick. So it's kind of just like
sure, but yeah, sorry.
so it's just kind of like because it works kind of because we're already like through these like humorous moments and whatnot and like less like thematic reasons for why Barry's doing things that we kind of just come to accept the narrator as like another character instead of just like a narrator.
But once again, I think if Kubrick wanted to, he could have like also like made a very natural flow, right? Like I think it's more of a conscious decision this way. Although I do really like your point about the objectivity, Derek, because this is actually something I hadn't quite thought of. I want to go back to it.
Well, yeah, because that's important because Barry's a liar.
Well, yeah,
So like, if he did throw in some line, we'd have to be like reading into it to see if he was telling the truth or not.
that's also fine, right? That's like kind of what makes writing good is having to read into our characters.
Yeah, but I guess in this case, we like that's just something that Kubrick didn't want to focus on. Like he didn't want the viewer to have to read into this, like especially because this movie is like already like pretty slow to have to like add in all of these extra scenes that are probably going to be the same pace to like and like put enough work into them to like establish the emotional like complexity to like figure out what his real intentions are when he's probably going to be saying something that's not exactly the truth. I mean, that would just take up time, and I mean, B, I guess it's just something like not what he wanted to focus on. Like, we want his intentions to be like pretty known at all times without having to necessarily fight for them.
Yeah, like I was saying, I do agree with Caleb, but at the same time, like, oh gosh, sorry, I'm spacing out here. Sorry, my thing's being weird.
Take your time.
Can you guys hear me? My thing was making this like very bizarre noise.
You sound good.
Yeah, we hear you.
Sorry. Are we like? Can you repeat your last point, Caleb?
I guess my 2 points were that A, because this movie is already pretty slow, if he's gonna have to put in a whole
Yes.
new scene about like explaining his intentions, then I mean, this movie's not like that scene is not gonna be of rapid pace out of nowhere. Like it's probably gonna be just as slow as the rest of the movie. So that means that like any additional thing you want to add is going to take up time, especially like because we know that Barry is a liar. Like like we're gonna have to it's going to have to convey a substantial amount of nuance to convey the information that he's saying this thing but he means another thing. And then also like there's also just a layer of like with all that stuff it's going to take up time and it's probably just not something that Kubrick wanted to focus on. Like he wanted Barry's intent to be pretty much known at all times, which I guess to make him feel more like centered as the protagonist. And like I guess like a quick and easy way of having to do that through the whole like because the other thing is too, right? This takes up like a long period of this guy's life. So if this movie was about like a day, we wouldn't have to like constantly reestablish what his motive is. But his motives of like what he's aiming for in his life are like changing constantly. Because in the beginning, he wants to win the hand of his cousin. Then he wants to, kill this Quinn guy. He hates that guy. Then he wants to make his way in the world. Then he wants to make his way to Holland so he can get back to Ireland. Then he wants to. So like, if we had to spend the time to like explain what he wants at every stage, it would take like just so much effort and time. Whereas when they just have these like little expositional things where the narrator says, and at this point, Barry wanted to get to Holland and then secure passage back to Ireland. It just like not specifically in that scene only, but in every case where we need to reestablish what he wants to do.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and I think you might have stumbled across, if accidentally, the actual like joke and reason here, which is, but also Kubrick could have. He was saying that like, oh, the movie's already so long and it already takes up so much of his life. Like this would all take time. This is like the crux of your point, right? But the thing is, this takes time because Kubrick decided to make every shot, twice as long as it needs to be. Like this movie, very realistically, could be an hour and a half and be the exact same content, at least, from a narrative perspective.
But yeah, but then you're arguing a different point, which is why did Kubrick make a slow movie?
Maybe the two are related, right? Which is where I'm going. Maybe the reason why he does have all these long shots is maybe the reason it's a narration is almost to make fun of the fact that he's all these long shots, right? Where it's quick and easy, right? And quick and easy is in a lot of ways is a bad thing, right? Like in film, you don't quick and easy writing. It's usually not a good thing. You want scenes that are a bit more drawn out, and we like really think about the writing. I think almost in this way, on the writing, and he's actually praising the text, which is more ironic because we still have this very bookish feel of the movie, and even this movie that almost reads straight like a book. Derek has to applaud the second half of the movie as these images, right? Maybe that's like Kubrick's whole point all along is almost image supersedes text and narrative and dialogue and these things.
Yeah.
Also, to go to Derek's point, about the objectivity. I think that's a really good point too, Derek. I think more than just objective, it does distance ourselves, right? Because this movie would be very hard to watch from any singular character's point of view, right? 'Cause you can't really sympathize with any of them. I think it's like narrator, like it's almost a being. It is a bit. He's almost the character we can relate to most as the narrator, you know, he's seeing things. So in that way, I think it really works as well.
I disagree that you can't sympathize with any of these characters though, because I felt like almost everyone, like in the second half of the movie, I felt like I could kind of get behind them pretty substantially.
Also, I
Like,
think, I don't know. I think Barry is supposed to be, I don't know if sympathetic, but at the very least, I think he's like the vehicle for like a commentary on the society that he's in, and I think tied in with the objectivity of the narrator, I think that's part of what's facilitating that is that the narrator is who we sympathize with most, and he's obviously not a part of the society, so we can freely shit on it.
I
And
do
we
agree with that.
and we get to see him shit on the society, but we also see him like shit on Barry, which I think
I
is
mean, what comment is it making on society?
because it's kind of like because we're watching Barry. This is called Barry Lyndon, and Barry Lyndon himself is getting like tossed around and like ruined and thrown in these random wars by society. He's like not actually like has real agency most of the time, most of this movie, and I think that's kind of part of the comment on this society is that like a person not of like the highest stature is not going to have much agency, and a person of Barry's character in this time is not going to have much agency.
I agree that that's an aspect of this movie, but I feel like that is so like that's like already known. Like that's not like a a point that he was necessarily trying to make, in my view, because like
He's not trying to.
there's no point in like making that point because everybody already knows that. Like
Well,
Well, I think
maybe
the idea is the silliness of class, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what this epilogue is saying. Like the
Oh,
epilogue, in the Rand
that's
King's
fair.
third, the aforementioned personages lived handsome, ugly, rich or poor. They're all equal now, right? Like it's kind of ludicrosity of what it means to be rich and famous. Because once Barry gets class, it literally comes at the expense of everyone's happiness. You know, in this way.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. So like
I sort of read the epilogue as like part of the like circle of life type thing. Though, like everyone like comes up and has their day in the sun and then must eventually fade down.
I think that's a further maybe interpretation of it, but definitely I would take the literal interpretation to be like
Yeah.
the reduction
Yeah.
of class to nothingness in death.
True.
Also, what characters do you like, Caleb? Because I really have a hard time liking any of these characters, especially in the back half of the movie.
Really, dude? I think Barry Lyndon is good.
Maybe
I think Mrs. Lyndon is good, and I think
I-
Stepson is good. And
Okay,
Wait,
so
what?
I'm not saying like compelling characters. I'm saying likable characters.
why are
I think Barry Lyndon.
yeah, I was taking it to mean both ways. I think Barry Lyndon is likable. His wife is likable. The stepson's likable. Or maybe not likable, but the stepson's not likable, but you can see where he's coming from and sympathize with him.
I guess. I mean, I think they're all kind of the worst. And Barry's this guy who cheats his way through life, lies to pretty much everybody. It's not even like, and it's not even what he meets, right? But he's not that charming to us, the viewer, right? He's not like fun. He's not fun at all. Like Barry's lies aren't fun. They're kind of pathetic almost. You know, he's like the thing. He's not.
I kind of found the lie about like the fort or whatever like kind of like obviously it is kind of pathetic, but it's also like endearing in the same way. Like some old guy just reliving his glory days. That old man, you know him.
He used to get ahead, like talking about how like I guess like these cheating to get ahead, like where he's like all this like gambling and stuff. It's like a fun gambling. He's just kind of doing it to get by. Or him cheating on his wife. This isn't like a fun thing, He's just cheating to get ahead or seducing. It's not like a fun seduction at all. It's actually very like depressing, and it's depressing from the onset.
I don't know. I feel like he lived like we see like the hardships that he went through in the first half of his life, so it kind of makes sense to be like trying to get ahead. Plus, there's lots of scenes where he shows like vulnerability and tenderness and romanticism. Like the first bit of the movie is basically him being a hopeless romantic, which is not necessarily admirable, but you can sort of see where he's coming from. And then
Sure, but
the scene when he's like when he first meets the Chevalier and like he literally breaks down because like he's finally found something that like reminds him of home and like he's found a countryman, like that's like moving, dude. And I'm not saying everything he does is right, obviously, but I think you can at least see like where he's coming from and he feels like a human being.
in the back half of the movie, it's almost all wrong. Literally, he does not do like it is hard for me to point out a single like moral thing he does in the back half of this movie, which is what the
Well,
question
yeah.
was.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
but
other than
that's like
his not shooting his stepson.
well, yeah, and like they talk about how good of a father he is, and the whole point of the second half of the movie is that like the whole second half, like the first half is life, the second half is death. The second half is where he starts breaking down, and he's nothing like he used to be, and like bad
This
things
is
are
not-
happening basically.
You know, this is revisionist, right? Because from the onset of the back half of the movie, he's a bad person. It's not like we get like this dynamic transformation. Barry is most hit like at the end of part one, someone we like, and then almost immediately, with no like real to it. I mean, sure we can reason like ourselves logically why he might have gotten this way, but no somatic reason to it why he is such an asshole.
But I mean, does
I
someone have to be like a great person to be sympathetic?
I think isn't that supposed to be the comment on like high class? Like the moment that he becomes, he uses his like gambling to become like a high class member. He goes to shed, like as a person. I thought that was like the character piece part of it. Is that was like the I don't know the importance of that. He's
Like,
using
yeah.
his like status to get the things that he wants in life, like in a very like aggressive sense.
I'm
And not.
not saying this is a bad thing, Derek. I'm just saying he is not likable for this reason, though.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, I
As
think.
none of these characters, under this logic that you're using, they're all high class and thus all terrible people.
They're all using like these, power moves to get what they want. I would say, with the exception of Lady Lyndon, because I think maybe in like a comparison to his early days, he's like acting with love most of the time. So, and that's
But
like
she's also like kind of trash too. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like she definitely like cheats on her dying husband, and then immediately gets with a guy who clearly only wants her for her money. And yeah, sure, she was like in love with him or whatever. Around her is like able to realize it's a garbage move, and you kind of feel like she should too. And then she like disowns her son for the sake of this guy. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know,
can
man.
see that.
I don't blame her for like cheating on her husband to some amount because like that guy's like way older than her, so that's kind of like a messed up situation to begin with.
I mean, in the context of this time, that's kind of not unusual. I don't think that's technically supposed to be like, it's alright because, he was older than her. It was obviously not a match meant to be. And this time, socially speaking, that's like perfectly fine.
Also, she didn't cheat on him per se. She just like kind of had this like paramour, and then her husband died, and then she married him. It wasn't like scandalous.
She kissed him, and then it fades to black. We can imply what happened there.
I don't know, man.
As Dirk was saying, he gets, what was the line again, Dirk, for the narrator? Like he gets close to her.
Yeah, that line.
We can
That's
also
one of the
imply
reasons why I
what
kept. He
they're
found
definitely-
innumerable ways to improve his intimacy. That's not a line. Oh.
Yeah, I think they're banging. I think it's fair to say. I mean, and I think like Dirk says, I think it's fair to say that like, well, this is not unintentional with Kubrick, but it does make it, and it does make the narrator necessary in this way. But we talked a lot about this movie, so let's go like our big cool shot hit. Go run. Take what if you like, and move on.
I already mentioned all mine. Damn, busted my load early. Actually, no, never mind. I forgot one. I'll go. I connected this one too. When her chaplain is giving the speech at their Barry and Lady Lyndon's wedding, he's like basically shitting on them the entire time. He's like, in a relationship that's not lustful, brazenly but soberly, discreetly, and advisedly formed under the eyes of God. It was so good.
I guess what I find redeemable about these characters is they all feel natural. Like they just feel like real people, and this is like just like a natural cycle, and that's the thing that people do naturally. Like, yes, they're selfish, but people are naturally selfish. So I don't know. That's why I found them forgivable.
I understand this, Caleb, but you can do readable and give them redeeming moments. We get literally none from any of these characters. Like, it's actually this very unique thing where he will have two characters in the same scene. And I think, like, once again, I think this is all intentional. Like, I'm not criticizing Kubrick for this at all. Brian and Lord Bullington, right? Never have I seen a scene where two characters fought over something so pointless where I hated both of them so much. You know? He's being such an asshole. And Lord Bullington is like responding in the worst possible way. And yes, you can say this is human, but like
It's definitely a result of their excess in life.
yeah, exactly. And all the characters just give him what they want. Brian, who was like supposed to be like the most innocent and like you would think would be the most likable one, literally dies because he's just an idiot and like completely disobeys everybody and like breaks the promise with both of his parents individually. Like there's a redeemable, I find. We don't even get their good moments, is my point. Once again, the only moment we're gonna get that's good from any character is like you said earlier, Caleb, these scenes with Barry as a parent. But even then, how good is Barry's parenting if he lets his kid die? And it's harsh to
Yeah, I
say.
mean, I agree. He's not a great parent, but they talked about how at least he's a loving parent. Also, I
Yeah.
found the scene where, like right after she like catches Barry like making out with a maid, and then she's like in the tub, and then he comes in and they have that like weird like touching like hand holding kiss scene. I don't know. I found that like really powerful. It's like this sort of like redemptive
That's
act
redemptive.
I thought it was
because it's
more.
like because she forgives him, and then it's like I don't know. It's like
Was
powerful.
it forgiveness? I thought it was more like a claim thing. I thought that was like I don't know.
Like I saw it as this very like kind of possessive, like
Yeah.
it's all right, baby. Like from him, like it's all right. Like he's almost telling her it's all right, which is like this very backwards thing.
Oh. I didn't read it that way.
Even if she's forgiving him, she shouldn't be forgiving him. Like, why is she forgiving him?
Yeah, I don't think that was maybe that's a good moment for her showing like, a trait of forgiveness, but in the context, that is definitely not a redemptive moment for Barry.
I think you guys are like. I think the main thing here is you guys are looking at this as like a lot more of like. I mean, you guys are doing what's fair, which is analyzing it as fiction, right? But I think if you like analyze this as like a story about like someone's real life, it all just like feels so authentic. Like, yeah, that's like obviously like not good for her, and it's not like great. It doesn't like make her a great person or like a strong character, but it does feel like that would actually happen. Like,
But
you know,
Caleb,
like
I'm not. We're not disagreeing with that.
happen. All these things happen in the movie. We can also get positive moments. My point is, we get zero positive moments. She can have this scene of her being really nice to her kid or something, or like Barry doing something really nice to her one day, which I'm sure also probably happened in the span of however many long year marriage.
But it's not what Kubrick wants us to realize about these characters.
She wants us to like only get negative, which is very interesting because once again, this is like the far more beautiful half of the movie, which is something ironic to that too, which is like we almost don't care about the narrative, and it almost is like get to the point where characters, because they're associated with such beauty in their lives, which good on you, Kubrick, I guess. But I also want to go back to this forgiveness scene. Just really quick into this. Forgiveness is not only wrong because forgiveness, you forgive someone for something that you're repenting of. You're repenting, right? Like it is heavily implied that he continues to do this all throughout the rest of their marriage.
but does he? He's never shown to do it again.
Yes, it's implied because says that like, and you're even cheating on her and all this stuff when he's like 16. And I think it's safe to say that like this one time he saw her when he was 6. It's probably not what he's referring to.
I'll have to think about that. Anyways, I'm
At
ready.
the
That's
very
all my
least,
stuff on
Kubrick
this
does
movie.
not show a scene where Barry's like, "Oh yeah, I'll stop,"
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
which is definitely probably.
But I thought, to me, like I thought that's what this scene was. Like that's how I read it.
So why did the narrator say anything? No, but one thing I want to say is I thought that guy was a really good performance. Like, I don't think we're gonna mention when we do like our best performances because there's obviously a lot more actors, and a lot bigger parts. But that guy, he's like giving this like really like hateful speech towards Barry, and then immediately dies. That seems actually really strong. I think
Which one?
Wade Lyndon's first husband.
Oh yeah, that one was great.
You think you can just take my property and all this stuff? I'm gonna live some longer, my boy, and all these things. It's so good. I think the guy is really talented.
There were great performances in this movies and all around. I thought.
Oh yeah, and the acting is superb. I think. Shots of them in the carriage, of like Barry and Lady Lyndon looking in separate directions.
Mm-hmm.
Question: you guys know this fight scene between like the French and the British armies they have towards the beginning of the movie, like this battle scene?
Uh-huh.
What's going on there? Why are the British not shooting?
Which scene?
Like
When they're walking at the
scene.
line. Like when they're just walking at them.
Yes.
I think to get in proper range, I don't know. I don't think because obviously setting up would be, or maybe because setting up like rightfully would take too long, so they're trying to actually reach the line in charging distance and then charge.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was.
Seemed like it was not the best strategy. Maybe I'm wrong, but I guess they ended up winning the battle. But geez, a lot of people died on that one. Why is like the commander dude out front? That's not realistic. They always took the side or the back. Anyways, the movie.
What's up?
The movie.
Want to talk about crimes and misdemeanors?
I want to do, Derek. Yes. Crimes, misdemeanors. What do you guys think?
I like James Joyce.
That was what was the actual line again? I have it written down somewhere. Gosh, where's this line? Oh well.
Oh, you probably noticed by all the references to Dublin.
There's also like a literal exact James Joyce reference.
Oh yeah, when they're talking at the dinner party, that dinner party scene. Oh my god, that was so. I couldn't. That was so awkward. Where he's like awkwardly trying to continue the poem that she just referenced to like try to connect with his wife right next to him.
Oh, is this the one where it's like Lester and then Cliff and then like the two girls and then like Cliff and then Hallie or whatever like do like one line each and then he just like Lester like goes off.
Yeah, it's that was too much for me.
This Lester guy was such a funny character. Holy crap. That guy like actually had me doubled over laughing.
Performed so well too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he starts talking about how like Abraham Lincoln's death is funny. Like, oh my god. You're just even thinking about it is hilarious.
You don't understand. It's time plus tragedy equals comedy.
Yeah. And then like, yeah, spouting up all these like really, really cliched aphorisms just like out of nowhere.
Oh, and then
if it bends, it's funny. If it breaks, it's not funny.
It's not funny. So strong. And then like obviously it all comes to a head when like Woody Allen's character makes I should call him Cliff, when Cliff like makes this like compilation of him and it's so good.
And it's like the Mussolini like
Also, he has a donkey repeat what he's saying.
I was dying. And he looks so like it's not even like a shady grin. He literally doesn't understand what's wrong with this. He's like not thinking.
Now Oedipus, that's funny.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. It's the dichotomy between the two characters alone is so strong.
We have references to incest in one movie and actual intentions for incest in the other.
Yeah. Facts though.
Oof.
Which? Okay, wait. We have two still ones. Let's already into the Lester Cliff one. So let's continue on with that plot. No, it's a comedy piece.
What I liked is that this movie has a lot of like quick shifts in time to just like show you whatever needed to be shown at that exact time. Excuse me. But like they would like reference like, oh yeah, and when I do something like this other thing, and then like they'll immediately just like show them doing that other thing.
Can I have an example?
It was definitely it was towards the beginning, and it was with the cliff. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just kind of like constantly bouncing back and forth in time. I don't really remember to give you an example, honestly. Let's see if I have it on my notes, but I don't think I do. Oh, okay. So a good example is when like they start talking about like their. This isn't Cliff, but when what's the main character's name? The eye doctor.
Judah.
Yeah, whenever he's talking about like his Jewish upbringing, and then it'll just like cut to him having like a family dinner with like his Jewish family, and just like there's like we're talking about something, I'm gonna show you that thing.
Yeah, it's a very Woody Allen move, though, right?
Uh-huh.
We've seen a couple of his movies now. And obviously, if we continue to watch his movies, we'll definitely see an Annie Hall and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
But what do you guys think of like this Cliff Lester plot?
I mean, it's strong. It's depressing. This whole movie is really depressing. But yeah, that's
It's
pretty
depressing.
depressing. Wait, what did you say?
Why do you think it's depressing?
Because it's all about like anti-true love, basically. It's like he meets this girl that he like really connects with, and she really connects with him, and she's basically set up as like this, dream girl stereotype, and then she ends up falling for this guy who's literally like he's literally like a parody of a buffoon. Yeah, that's depressing.
But he's endearing.
Who's endearing? Lester? Shut up! Lester is not an endearing character. No, Lester is awful. He's a terrible character.
Isn't to Cliff, but he is to everybody else.
Yeah, that's the whole joke. To Cliff, he like will just rant to Hallie, who's like, yeah, sure, he's awful, yeah. He's really bad.
Like, I think the most telling scene is this scene, like we're talking about this dinner date, and they come back from it, Cliff and his, soon-to-be ex-wife. Everything both of them are saying are completely true. It just seems like, right? Where Cliff's like, she couldn't stand him. She had a line she gave him, about like maybe some other time. Ha! What a good line. Really got him. And she's like, no, she was staring at him the whole time. And both of those things are true. You know what I mean? How you look at the situation.
I mean, yeah, but I don't think he's supposed to be an endearing character. Like, I mean, like you said, like about other movies, right? Like, we can reason through this, yeah, and like take all that stuff and say, like, okay, yeah, Woody Allen's perspective on this guy is probably, or Cliff's perspective on this guy is probably not 100% objective. But the way he's presented to us is through Cliff's eyes, and therefore he's not an endearing character.
No, but the point is that to literally everyone else, he is. That's kind of like that's the joke. Woody Allen's character Cliff is the one who has the problem. Cliff is the problem, not Lester.
It's actually
hard disagree.
What did you say, Matt?
So, know what it reminds me of? It's BoJack Horseman.
Oh yes, yeah. That's actually really accurate.
It's like the BoJack character and Lester
Mr. Peanut
and
Butter.
Hallie are Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, right?
Yep.
Where Cliff thinks like we're so perfect, we're really on this level, but girls don't want Cliff. Not because of his personality or his looks or these sorts of things, but because he's not fun to be around. Negative person.
But that's not true. Like, he does all these things with her that's like so fun, and she literally says like,
What?
"This is so fun."
Yeah, because she relates to
watching
the
that, like-
activities. She relates to the activities, not the man. The man is not a positive in her life. That's why she goes for Lester, is because he's the positive. And Cliff even has this realization. He's not able to achieve this level of, like, giving nature that Lester has shown.
But Lester doesn't have a giving nature. He's like
That's
he's like
what
groping women all the time.
That's what she says. That's what she said. That's literally what she says.
Like he's like also like he was talking about how he gave her like all these like roses and stuff and which apparently
I get that's a giving in one way, yes, but I don't think. I guess I was thinking more like emotionally giving, whereas that guy is just like self-aggrandizing and
The
groping.
difference is that what Haley has to say about Lester is that he's endearing and giving and all these positive things. What are the positive things she says literally about Cliff?
Oh yeah, no,
She
I
doesn't say
completely
literally
agree, right?
positive things about Cliff. She
I
says
agree. If
positive
we're
things about the
presenting it that
activities
way-
they do, not about Cliff.
If we're presenting it that way, I agree, right? Because we're looking at it from Hallie's point of view. But the whole point is that Hallie's point of view isn't objective either, and the whole point is that Hallie's falling for this guy that's presented as a douchebag because that's what douchebag. He's like suave, I guess. I don't know, like, and he's spent a lot of money and attention on her, but he's still an idiot and a
that's the
douchebag.
joke of the movie. The movie
Yeah,
is
that's a joke.
Lack of a better word, tragedy plus time, right? The movie is like depressing, and it's what you're saying, Caleb. But that's the joke of all of it. Is once you give it time, you realize that like the villain all along, right?
No, I
single
completely
character-
disagree.
movie disagrees with them. Every single
But-
one. And he's obviously delusional. This guy literally thinks that making a movie where Lester is portrayed as Mussolini in any universe going to end well.
But I think the issue here is that you guys are taking it like Lester is actually just this like sweet, caring guy.
No,
and
we're not saying that.
And hang on, let me finish. That like Lester is this like the sweet, nice guy, and that Cliff can't see it, and because he's so sweet and caring and generous and all this stuff, that Hallie falls for him, right? But what my read on the movie is that Lester's really a douchebag, and maybe his view isn't, and maybe Cliff's like read on him isn't like perfect, but like it's at least has some basis in truth. And then Hallie falls for him not because he's a sweet, endearing guy, but because he's a douchebag who's good at seduction.
No. The thing is, Cliff sees, because Cliff is already predisposed to not like Lester.
Yeah.
What you do when you don't like someone is that their negative qualities jump out at you and their positive qualities retreat. That's what we're presented with when we're seeing from Cliff's side. So literally everyone else, it's like how it usually is with someone that you're like neutral or like. Their negative qualities diminish and their positive qualities increase.
They acknowledge the negative qualities, but they also acknowledge the positive,
Exactly.
We see Cliff being a douchebag even in scenes we see Lester being a douchebag even in scenes where Cliff isn't.
Yeah, this is kind of like what we're seeing with Barry Lyndon. Cliff only sees the negative. That's the point. So literally everyone else, they see all of
No,
Lester's
but I
positive
think you may have
qualities as
misunderstood what I just. I think you may have misunderstood what I just said, or maybe I misspoke. But in scenes where Lester, like there are scenes where Lester is being a bad person, but Cliff is not there to see him being a bad person, so it can't be through Cliff's eyes. It's just objective.
Like such as.
Well, like towards the final scene when he sits down, when Lester like sits down with his sister, and then his sister, Cliff's wife, talks about how she's basically been cheating on Cliff, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing! I'm so happy to hear that."
No, that's actually that's a big point in like Cliff being awful. Literally everyone around him is tired of him. That's literally the point of that scene. That literally Cliff is unable to see his own negative qualities.
And they're broken up at this point.
Yeah.
Like they're basically broken up. Like
Yeah.
you said that she's cheating on him, but she's like, I found a guy. She's not like I'm like hooking up with this dude. And people like move on from Cliff basically. And she's not taking it hard.
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't know. To me, it came off. I think that's like. I think we're deliberately supposed to read that as Lester being a douchebag because it's meant to be ironic that
I
like.
literally didn't see it at all that way.
Wait,
Like,
what?
I'm not even saying this like as a contrarian. I did not say that. Literally
Well, I
saw
think-
that as yes. Like they're both moving on. And Cliff's also cheated on her.
But like the whole point is that like it's ironic because it comes directly after like what like in the context of the scene. The whole thing is like he sits down with his sister and he's like, "Man, you know, sometimes I really that Cliff guy really makes me feel like maybe I am just an idiot and all this stuff." And like you think like it's like it tricks you, right? It's a bait and switch because you think he's gonna have this like introspective moment and like see that he's like actually a buffoon, but then it's like he starts like guffawing at the fact that his sister is having an affair with someone. So it's like
Saying affair. Just
It, like-
she's really said she's met someone else. We don't know if there's anything
I
sexual.
think you're missing the point. To literally everyone else, Cliff is the negative person. He's not fun to be around. It literally his what he's sitting down and he's trying to give it nice to his sister. He's trying to be like, hey, he's not really that bad, but sometimes I just have trouble being around that guy, but I'll stick it out for you. It's all right. But she's admitting that she's tired of him, and this
She's moving on.
allows him
Yes.
to be
So-
honest with his feelings. And that's what the yes part of the yes is, that like, yes, finally I can be like honest with you about I really don't like Cliff.
And I think the ultimate like punchline, or one of the funniest parts and like the most telling parts, is there's really two characters that we say positive things about Cliff. One of them is his sister, which we don't even really see her say anything positive, right? We see her say things that like aren't negative, right? Positive interactions. And even she's a very sad, lonely character. And the other one is this like 15-year-old girl that he has literally like validation dispenser, right? Like he doesn't like care about actually interacting with her. The only reason he likes her is because he can use her to like give these very like kind of surface level like compliments to him.
no, I think it's because I mean
And
he just likes
give
to
out-
share the stuff that he's passionate about. So it's like he's just like trying to like. I agree that it's shallow, but it's not like she's just running around complimenting him. It's like, here, I finally have someone who's gonna listen about all my movies and weird shit.
Well, she's just validating him,
Yeah,
compliment.
exactly. He's with her because she validates him.
He literally
Yeah.
made he crafted her into this, right?
Yeah.
That's the ironic
Over
part.
time.
No, I agree
It's
about
like-
that. Sure.
He literally made for himself somebody who like just is there to boost his ego and to like validate his worldview. Lester, for instance, like the only time we really get negative at Lester is when she's like, "You're so much better than him, though," which is like literally what he's basically programmed her to say. It's like awful at the time you believe her, but then you be back, you're like, this is actually a ridiculous scene.
That's literally something you say about someone who like someone's like, God, I can't stand that person. Like they're so bad at their job or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, you're like so much better than they are. Like literally, basically regurgitating what they just said.
Except like she's not even doing it on purpose, she's just doing it because like he's literally like he trained her to, essentially. Like it's so ridiculous. Yeah, I think that's what I'm really strong. But I don't see it as depressing. I see it as like the ultimate joke, right? It's the ultimate tragedy plus time equals comedy. It's like seemingly tragic, but actually not at all.
I think both readings are really tragic though, like because even your reading sounds just as depressing as mine. That like, or even more so, like our main character like is this unhelpable douchebag who's he's the actual asshole, and yeah, I don't know, it's pretty depressing from both angles. In my opinion.
Girl and everyone else around him gets to be happy.
Yeah,
What's
literally
depressing about that?
everyone else ends up happier.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
That deep?
Wait, I mean, you're kind of cutting out, but didn't you just say that you get to be sad and everyone around you gets to be happy? That's like textbook depressing.
He gets to be sad, but yeah, everyone around him gets to be happy because he's a soul's life sucking.
Yeah, that's depressing, guy.
It's not a like a.
I mean,
Sure,
that's
we-
depressing if you sympathize and with Cliff, but if you realize he's the douchebag in this situation, then is not so sympathizing.
But
Kinda
you
real-
have to sympathize with Cliff. He's like literally like he's meant to be sympathized with.
I wouldn't say meant to be. I think he's used as a vehicle to show that even though you sympathize with a character at the beginning or a person with the beginning, they can you can find out new things about them and have a realization of your perspective on them.
I think it's literally meant to be depressing until it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's literally you're supposed to be depressed at first and be like, wait, actually. Watch BoJack Horseman, Caleb, but literally this exact same thing happens with BoJack Horseman. It's actually kind of like a weird one-to-one comparison. It's like the
Yeah.
exact same thing where like really douchey guy, and then he was like, "I'm so much better for you," and you're like, "Wait, fuck this guy!" Like he's trying for like good and like something healthy, and you can say a lot of things, but like his name, his relationship with Hallie is never presented as healthy.
I mean, is it presented as unhealthy?
And when he kisses her, and she's like, "I gotta go,"
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. But not just because she didn't like him.
No, that was
And even-
that was definitely her being nice.
and they're
Well,
both
yeah,
like,
I mean,
or at least she's
yeah,
a very career.
What were we gonna say, Matt?
I was gonna say that she's also very career focused. It's the first thing we learn about her, and he's always like she's like he's making her someone who's like not career focused, right? Like she's showing up late to her job for like no reason. These sorts of things.
That's an interesting point.
He's taking away from like what makes her her, what makes her successful. Yeah, I think that like maybe the relationship isn't the best. But let's move on to the really this isn't even the main plot. You could argue. You could argue the main plot's this other one, which is this plot with Judah. What do you guys think about this plot?
I kind of feel like that one was definitely more of the main plot.
Yeah, I agree.
It was definitely more palatable to watch.
More.
Less Woody Allen.
Sure. I like the Woody Allen. You guys are always talking. The Woody Allen.
We know.
You don't think the Woody Allen parts are really funny?
No, they were good.
Some parts were funny. Some parts I literally was cringing so hard that I almost stopped watching.
He's an American phenomenon. Yeah, so is Acid Rain. It's so good. Here's another really good burn. He's interested in producing something of mine. Yeah, your first child. It's just so strong. Anyways, but yeah, it is definitely easier to watch.
The use of flashback between in the Judah and Dolores like was so interesting. Like Judah uses it kind of to explore his like past with Judaism, but Dolores is using it to explore her past and like the good moments of the relationship, and that kind of like keeps driving her to push for this, like her desperation for this connection that to like I don't know reconnect I suppose. And we see it kind of like the initial like Judah doing that as well, but in the I guess kind of comedically or ironically after she dies. So it's the moment where he permanently loses the connection is where he's like, oh, we had something actually there.
Well, kind of though, but she was basically just a validation machine for him. So like you could say like he had some enjoyable moments with her, but they were pretty like they weren't like I would hesitate to say there was something real there because like he says many times that the only reason he was in that relationship was for vanity. And then we have this situation where like they're running on the beach and he's like, wow, you're in such good shape. And he's like, yeah, for my age. And then she's like, no, for any age. And then that's mirrored by whenever his family buys him the treadmill. And then someone's like, he's like, yeah, I'm actually in pretty good shape. And then they're like, yeah, for your age. So it's like, it like kind of has the same conversation, but shows how like his family is devalidating and she was validating.
No, I was talking about the scene specifically after she dies, where yes, beforehand he's talking about basically how she validated him. That's why, and that's kind of a reason why he allows himself to go through this whole endeavor of killing her. But immediately after, when he actually sees her, he has or like thinks about seeing her like dead and whatnot. He like at his home, he has the like flashback to a moment where there was no validation occurring, but it was still a special moment for him as we see him flashing back, which is set up to be showing special moments in his life.
Do you remember what
And
that moment was?
the moment was simply where he was sitting in her or laying in his head in her lap, and they're just chilling.
But don't you think that is kind of validating? Because it's like literally like her taking a nurturing position towards him.
I wouldn't say that's intentionally validating. I don't know. I'd say validation would have to come from like, at least in the context of this movie, like we've shown that it's very much like validating ideology, or like in Judas' case, his body or his age and whatnot.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's validating, and the reason why is because like it's at least I mean it is maybe validating, but it's not like it's like unhealthy self-validation, right? Where it's like she's doing things that like he should be doing to himself. Right? Like he should feel good about his like of him, you know. It shouldn't matter who's telling him what.
Yeah, that
With this,
flashback
like,
is just a connection moment, like a moment about connection.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I agree it does come off more wholesomely than the beach scene, but you have to admit, of all the positions they could have shown these two people in, it's him with his head on her lap and she's like stroking his head, like in a
Yeah,
very
because
like
a service that his wife doesn't. She is willing to nurture him. He's always the one who's his wife, and she looks up to him, not the other way around.
yeah, that's true.
But to go back to what you're saying, Derek, about the dichotomy between the two, I think it's really interesting because there's like this kind of like real disturbing irony where like she's seeing this as like the end of a relationship, and he's seeing this as like this big moral decision, which is like really terrible, right? And it's like even worse because like she's a human being, but we don't get like any sense from him that like her being a human actually matters. The theoretical of like, well, theoretically she's a human being. So what does this mean like from a theoretical religious standpoint? You know, there's no like actual like human emotion behind it.
Yeah, it's literally just about the consequence of the action and whether or not it's important to keep what he has.
She's a human being. This is human life, not a bug. But like, we don't get that sense from him at all. Like we don't until afterwards.
And even with I don't know, it was kind of interesting even in the scene where like his inside been telling him this is wrong to do. It wasn't very much about the morality of like killing a person so much as like the consequence of the sin.
But that scene where he's going back to his house is so good. That flashback scene,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
so strong.
yeah.
Well, like he enters his own flashback, which is pretty cool.
And like this like change in time, like constantly going back, like talking back then, talking about what he's doing present day. Strong stuff. It's crazy how late into the movie she dies though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels, but it really doesn't. Looking back through my notes, I wonder why that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's between. I'm trying to like see like where it is in like in terms of Woody Allen story. Um, yeah, it's like between these scenes where like he's about to kiss her, right? It's like right before that, basically.
Yeah, that's like an hour.
It's like that's
in.
like crazy. But man, some of these like conversations he's having though with people about like that, you know, really cool. Like this scene with Ben, the
Rabbi.
it's so good.
But yeah, I was a little confused about that, like, because it was a very like dark scene, and he essentially like admits to his rabbi that like he had this woman killed. But did that actually happen? Because I feel like
No, that one does not.
Okay,
that one
yeah,
does
that's
not.
what I thought.
Of course, obviously, where he's like fixing Ben's eyes, and like this quote Ben gives, where like what's going on, you know, like all of a sudden I came to this realization like everything I've been doing is wrong. And Ben goes, it's called wisdom. It comes to some suddenly between what is real and deep and lasting versus the superficial payoff of the moment, which is just like so true and so pertinent.
Mm-hmm.
But then also like really dark because Judah is very clearly not a wise person.
Yeah, that's true too. I didn't think about that. Well, he gained wisdom on that in that situation, but not actual like generalized wisdom. I mean, do you agree?
I'm sorry?
Do you agree that he did gain wisdom in that situation, but not like any kind of like generalized wisdom?
Wisdom's a weird word, you know what I mean? Definitely like, gains understanding, you could say, but like wisdom, like too
Yeah.
kind of a word to use. I think these scenes with Ben are all so strong, and it's so interesting that this is our connecting character. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, obviously you see him as a connecting character, but you're like, where are these two storylines actually going to come to a front? And it's at Ben's daughter's wedding, which Ben's completely blind to, which is also like
Yeah, that
a little
was
joke
such a cool
itself.
character, like a blind rabbi. Well, or a rabbi that even like becomes blind over the course of the movie. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so what is the relation? It's the. Can you remind me?
So, for Woody Allen's character, it is his or now ex-wife, by the time wife's brother. And then Ben knows Judah because Judah is the doctor visiting or fixing his eyesight.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I
it's
think
very
so at
weird,
least.
and like the two stories don't really like. I'm not really even sure what they have to do with each other.
They're
Like,
both
why
about
are these two?
affairs,
Yeah.
and they're both about like reality, right?
Cliff,
Talks
or Rabbi Ben is Cliff's brother-in-law, and
said, yeah.
so I mean, there's kind of some overlay there.
I think Caleb means more though, like thematically what they have to do with each other.
Yeah, like why are these two stories like in the same movie?
About reality, you know what I mean? And
Reality.
well, they talk about reality a lot. I think it's first brought up by Judah's brother, whose name is it Jack?
Yeah,
That's
it's
Yeah.
Jack.
Jack.
Yeah, it's
Real
Jack.
generic name. Talking about like you fancy rich people are all stuck up in your towers or whatever. You gotta come to reality where we kill people. Ironic because when Judah, I think he has a line later where it's like, I had to go beyond reality and do what I need to do. It's like really like not like the movies or anything, and it's like this Godfather music playing in the background, you know, like
Yeah.
it's very mafioso kind of music. It's like yes, reality. But then of course, and we already talked a lot about what Cliff has to do with reality, you know, where reality the entire time, and it's ironic because we think, oh, the rich are the ones who don't see reality. Cliff's storyline, all the rich, successful people are the ones who are seeing reality for what it is, and it's actually Cliff that's like,
Delusional.
yeah, it's just a delusional one, yeah. So like, reality is what we make of it. You know, it's not the rich see reality and the poor don't. Reality, and then I think there's also this question of like a film talking about reality is in itself ironic. It's like
Yeah.
paradoxical. Yeah, what do you guys think about this theme? Definitely, I think it's definitely the key theme of the movie, right? They mention it a lot.
Well, I mean, what do you think is like the? I agree that it's a theme, but what's the point? Like, what's the conclusion to all this? Like, that reality is subjective? That seems a little broad.
That's a good question, and one I can't quite piece together.
I
Gives people
think
to
I
answer.
don't. I This might be a bit too much, but it seems that Professor Levy's last speech is probably what the
I
point
was
of the
thinking this
reality
too.
is.
Continue.
That like pretty much life is a void. There's not like inherent meaning, and that these people around like giving their subjective meaning is and with their feelings and whatnot is probably realistically the only way to do it, or live a life that these people. That's the choice that these people have made. Not necessarily the only way, but that's the choice they've made.
Yeah.
But like, reality just happens in this movie is reality, right? Because it's completely subjective, you know. There is no like objective world. It is just what we put into it and what we see of it. Everyone's reality is reality, I feel.
It's also interesting to me that like we have such starkly different takes on this movie, or at least like the Woody Allen side of the storyline, and how that sort of like plays into the theme as well in like a kind of meta way.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that's what's really cool about it, right? I think it's like 100% intentional as well.
Yeah.
In the conversation between Judah and Cliff, where they basically confirm it definitely has to do with reality. Where Cliff's talking about this isn't a good ending though. Like this guy's got to be guilty or turn himself in or something like this, you know? Like, and Judah goes, "You've seen too many movies. I'm talking about reality.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you
that's
want a
pretty
happy
funny.
ending, you should go see a Hollywood movie." Well, the first irony there is we are seeing a Hollywood movie, and this is the ending we're getting.
Yeah.
Of course, the other ending is, I think a lot of the times the guy does turn himself in, and I think this is reality is because Judah's convinced himself it's reality. You know,
That's interesting.
Maybe it's almost saying that in real life Judah would have turned himself in, and then the better cinematic moment is him not, and him just going on.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is just what we convince ourselves it is, and it's completely subjective. You know, that's what we get from this Woody Allen thing is eyes, it's that he was the good guy. If you look at it through anyone else's eyes, it's that he was the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because reality is subjective, and there is no objective reality. That goes with Dr. Levy's speech. That's all about like life is just what we put into it, and the joy we try to take from it. Sorts of things. And, like it's just about the ability to keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all very strong.
I can
It
dig
was pretty interesting. I also really like the speech is about love.
it. Which one?
Love, where he's talking about like the quote right here. You notice that what we are aiming at when we fall in love is a very strange paradox. The paradox consists of the fact that when we fall in love, we are seeking to re-find all or some of the people to whom we were attached as children. On the other hand, we are asked to correct all the wrongs these early parent siblings inflicted upon us. So that love contains in it the contradiction, the attempt to return to the past, and the attempt to undo the past. I'm like, wow, that is actually not only like also like actually facts.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about that a lot, like in the last few days, like trying to think about how that affects like my own life. So I really like that quote too.
And this movie just we can say a lot of things about Woody Allen's directing. I think there's definitely some fair criticisms we could make. Not criticize this man's writing. I mean, he is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of those scenes of
So
him,
strong.
of like his Cliff's like footage of that professor and that guy just like monologuing about like random profound stuff was like really fun to watch.
Really is. What else about this movie? A lot of cinema references, including one movie we watched. Did you guys catch it?
Uh, it was a direct reference, or what was it?
It's in the background. It's a poster in the background.
No, I don't. I didn't.
What was it?
There's a movie poster in the background for a movie that we watched on the podcast.
What movie was it?
Was the kid.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Oh dang.
Yeah, it's in his little office. He has the kid poster.
Oh,
Another.
that's good. I was interested in the movie Woody Allen was watching with Haley. It seemed familiar.
Singing in the Rain?
Oh, yeah, that will do it.
Yeah, and that's what that movie's all about. But I haven't actually like seen the whole movie. I've seen clips from it, but it's about reality.
Yeah.
In the Rain, the whole thing is there's this girl who's woman who can't sing, right? She's having like I guess like a less pretty girl. I think she's like still very pretty if I remember. It's like sitting behind her on the curtain, right? And at the end, they pull the curtain away, and turns out that like singing all along, right, sort of thing.
Wait, what's the movie called?
Right?
Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain.
Oh, well, that one.
Definitely a movie you guys.
I thought
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the other one.
No.
No. So the thing that's Singing in the Rain is it's another movie all about reality, right? All about pulling the curtain out and seeing what's happening for what it really is.
Yeah, and
They all
also in
saw this-
relation to silent films versus talkies, the realities of
Yeah.
the actors' voices and whatnot. That's really interesting.
He sees a lot going on here, like writing wise, a lot.
Also interesting because Singing in the Rain is the song that Alex sings in Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah. So yeah, definitely interesting. These relations, also like all these comments about class, both movies, a lot of comments about class. Scene of Judah going in to visit oh geez, what's her name? Dolores?
Yeah.
Yeah, going to visit Dolores. I thought that seemed so good. Like, looking up at him, her dead body. Oh my gosh.
Also, the scene where Judah has some weird, anxious tension, like all the scenes, is very interesting because a lot of the time he plays it as kind of like a wound knot and it kind of just unfurls. It's very interesting.
It is very interesting, I agree. A really good actor though. Martin. I think he did a phenomenal job in this movie.
Oh man, I want to watch this movie again. Like talking about it makes me want to watch it really bad.
And that's how you know we had not only a good movie, but a good podcast.
True. Very true.
Trying to see if there's anything else we want to talk about before we go to like our awards and stuff. I mean that like the philosophy of guidance being this really old Jewish dude. It's so Woody Allen, but it's so perfect.
Yeah. Also, that guy killing himself is depressing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really depressing.
I've gone out the window.
Yeah.
That line, there's something about that that resonates. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the other little thing is when they're in the movie theater. He has a cheeseburger. Talking about?
Yeah, that was
Uh,
weird.
It's so bizarre. He just pulled out a cheeseburger in the movie theater.
Violent Films references this movie, that line specifically, I've gone out the window, or in a song. That's kind of funny.
That's funny. I'll have to check that out. What song is it?
Out the window.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I was thinking as I hit the street, I could hardly believe I had scarcely conceived, but I had gone out the window.
Yeah. What band is that?
Violent Films.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I heard the song. Okay, anyways, not the point. Awards time?
Awards.
First time where if we don't all agree on the favorite quote, we at least have it from the same character. Favorite quote, Eric.
That's tough.
Decision.
I'm gonna say my favorite quote is the one I mentioned. This heart of Lycians had been like many a neighboring town. It had been stormed and occupied several times before Barra came to invest it. But also, I've gone out the window, and a couple other of the narrators would definitely honorable mentions.
Caleb.
I would say. Oh man, I have a lot actually. Um, just the all Lester going like, now Oedipus, that's funny.
That is
And
really good.
in general, like literally like everything Lester says when they're like trying to record that documentary is just like so goddamn funny. What a well written character.
Okay, well, I'll go with the more basic one. I'm going with Professor Levy's quote about love.
Good choice.
Yeah, I already read it, so I'm not reading it again. Favorite scene?
I like the scene where Barry like breaks down in front of the Chevalier. Like there's just like a lot of
Interesting.
emotion there, and then like um I also like it in terms of the narrative because it's kind of like this scene that sort of like rescues him from like the low status he has in life was because he showed weakness and like told the truth, which is contrary to everything he had previously done in life, which was just lie. So like he finally decides to stop being the strong guy and stop lying and just like tell the truth and be weak, and then it works out for him. And then like also how it kind of like goes into this like narration, but then like behind the voice of the narration, you could hear the Chevalier like speaking English to him in like a Irish accent. So you're like, oh man, like he is Irish. Damn, feels good. And he's like, it's all right, boy, it's all right. I don't know, like touches the heart.
Mine would be the scene where Barry and Lady Lyndon start, getting intimate in this all the how slow it is. It's like slowly like recognizing each other, like they slowly initiating the intention, her leaving, him like eventually coming. Is like the slowness of it. I don't know. It just like worked so well for that moment that I was just like, damn. And also how it's shot, like a lot of it transitions from like what we were talking about, like the first part, like characteristic of one looking at only one face at a time, and it's just like hers his, and then once they make it to the balcony, it shows both of their bodies and then both of their faces and never stops. It's like the transition between like that style and the literal transition between the first part and the second part.
We already talked about, but scene with Barry Lyndon where the Prussian fight with the French. I think it's the French. Of those shots of like
Oh,
Barry shooting out the window and he pulls his gun back and like scans over the French, the whole battle scene. Then all the bombs, like how like gritty, like
mm-hmm.
this like fire is, and he carries them out. I think it's so good.
Yeah, the cinematography of that whole scene was so good.
It's really strong. Or who exactly his gun this is, and you see it's Barry's. Oh, that's great. Um, on that scene. Anyways, um, favorite character.
Can I say the narrator?
I guess. I don't know. That's you can say that. I don't know if that's like a very good choice, but
He, I don't know. I found him so funny, and also I don't know what he did for the movie was so interesting. I was a big fan.
I liked Lester, not as a person, but every time he was on screen, I was cracking up.
I'm gonna go with. You guys kind of said some good ones. I'm gonna go. Derek went. I'm gonna go with the original Mr. Lyndon. I thought he was just so strong, and one scene of him is just so great. I was like dying, but also it's like actually very heavy and emotional. Best performance. I think this is interesting.
Easily. This one's easy for me at least. Judah Martin Landau.
That's probably the answer. I think Mia Farrow does a really good job too, though. I do agree. Jude has more depth. Caleb? Guy's gonna say like freaking Barry or something.
I was gonna say that actually. That's my
That's-
choice.
Jesus
fine.
Christ.
Yeah, good acting in that movie.
Yeah, I agree. If I was going to pick a very Lyndon one, though, I was thinking of the Prince, who's always
Oh yeah.
from. He that was like one of his only non-Nazi general roles, and in Band of Brothers, he's the general who turns in his Luger.
Really?
Yeah,
Damn, that's interesting.
I noticed immediately. I was like, "Holy shit, that's that dude!" I noticed because of his fucking heavy jaw. I was like, "Damn, dude. I know that dude." And I want you to guess his name. It's so fucking German. His name's Wolf Kohler. Wolf Kohler. He's like fucking. Oh, this dude's so German. It's hilarious. He's a literal caricature. It's like, oh. Immediately after this, he's an eagle has landed like a almost Nazi exploitation.
He really could have been in oh my gosh, what was the one Nazi movie we watched, guys?
Oh,
The Damned?
The Damned. Yeah, I was about to say Days for the Damned.
Definitely could have been a character in The Damned.
Yeah, for sure.
But okay. Theoretically, I was supposed to do research and remember what you guys said, but I don't. So Caleb, was Crimes and Misdemeanors a step up or step down from Purple Rose of Cairo?
Step up.
Oh my gosh, sorry guys. This has been a long day. Was it a step up or step down from our other movie we watched? Cannot think of the name.
Clockwork Orange.
No, he's talking about the Woody Allen one.
Hannah and her sister.
Yeah.
Hannah and her sisters.
Oh, that's actually I don't know. Hannah and her sister was good. But
Caleb, what do you think?
wait, what did Derek say?
I haven't said anything yet. I'm waiting for you to go. I don't want to interrupt you.
It's been a long time since I saw Hannah and her sisters, and I don't.
Like 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, I remember like really, really liking it, but I also remember really, really liking this movie. So I'll just say step up.
I'm also going step up from both. Derek?
I'll say step up on both. Yeah.
We have
Actually,
4. Oh,
maybe no. It wins over Purple Rose of Cairo.
yeah, that's the one I would say it's competing with, but they're both really good.
Wait, you like Purple Rose more than Hannah and her sisters?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
Wow.
think I do too, but I like them both a lot. Okay, we have 4 Kubrick movies, so or step down from Paths of Glory.
Step up.
Step up.
I'd also go step up. Step down from The Shining.
Step up.
Step up.
Step up or step down from A Clockwork Orange. This is where it gets tough, I think.
I say step down.
Step down. Interesting.
I would also go step down.
I'd say step up.
I'm going step down as well. Okay, so Caleb, go first.
What did you say?
I'll go first actually, because I think mine's the most obvious.
Alright.
For Crimes and Misdemeanors, I thought Barry Lyndon was really good, beautiful movie, but also like a bit slow at points. Crimes and Misdemeanors was really strong throughout, really engaging, hilarious, and also just I think I actually thought very critically about, which I haven't really said about any round so far, where both of them, not only did I enjoy them, but I really thought critically about them. But I think Crimes and Misdemeanors a bit more so. Also, once again, just has quite as many inconsistencies in this movie. So I'm going Crimes and Misdemeanors. Both
Oh.
really good.
I'll
Caleb?
also say Crimes and Misdemeanors. Because I watched it like probably like a week ago or so, and I'm like still thinking about it. Like, there's so much to think about, and it's also like hilarious. So yeah, kind of like what you said. It just like hit both aspects of what I want out of a movie.
Derek?
I would say Barry Lyndon. I wasn't
Ooh.
all that impressed compared to Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon was way more interesting to me. I watched I don't know I watched Barry Lyndon like about almost a week ago, and I still enjoy it a lot. I would probably watch it again. Crimes and Misdemeanors one watch was enough for me. I pretty much got everything I wanted out of it.
I have to watch both movies again. Unfortunately, we have more movies to watch. I actually don't have my phone on me, and this computer doesn't have the sheet. Do you guys know, or someone want to throw the sheet in the Discord real quick so I can tell you?
Yeah, 1 second. Here, I just made one of my own, but I can give you the actual one.
Tell me what directors are next that'll work.
Oh, okay. In that case,
Sure.
we could
That's works,
do.
don't worry. Until then, I can tell you for sure that our movie is going to be Manhattan. Okay, here we go. So the next directors are going to be, it's going to be John Renoir, Les Parties de Campagne, I believe, and then F.W. Murnau's. You guys excited?
Yeah,
Wait, what was the Murnau movie?
the last laugh.
Okay, and that's our next set.
Yeah, the last laugh in Party de Campagne.
And guys, this is gonna be a bang around.
But the last laugh. So
Do you like the
People
last
talk
laugh or
about it.
don't like the last laugh?
I watched it like 4 times.
Ah, so you like it?
Are we pointing out the little things? Yeah, I do like the movie. I like both movies though. I've seen both of them. Really
Man,
both.
it sucks that Barry Lyndon lost because Doctor Strangelove would have won it all.
Yeah. It definitely could have, but we have the chance for an Annie Hall final, which is really because I really didn't think Woody Allen would make it because A, I thought you guys would prevent it from happening, but also I just didn't think like
I know. Well,
we'll
Matt
see.
was definitely gonna vote for Woody Allen, and Caleb's kind of just the upset because somehow he's liking this Woody Allen character a bit too much.
I think the reason why Woody Allen's doing well is that like I don't think any of Woody Allen's movies are like S tier amazing to me, but I think in my view all of his movies have been surprisingly like very consistently high quality. Like he hasn't had a single movie that I've been like disappointed by. Whereas like some of these directors, they have like amazing movies, but some of their like lower down ones are kind of like a little iffy. Whereas like all of his stuff's pretty good, so I think that's what's giving him an advantage.
Important to remember that like him being in the semifinals does not mean he's a top 4 director, right? It just means he's one of the 4 directors who has a chance of being the best director. You know, like it's not like the second whoever gets second in this is the second best director because once again it's about evaluating both consistency and peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to get into like the peaks, right? We're doing a lot of consistency these first few rounds. So.
Yeah, it's true.
I think yeah. Oh, but now Renoir, dude. Oh my gosh, you guys are just jerking me too much.
That's what I'm saying.
This like, what did we go for last time? We went for Mizuguchi, right?
Yeah.
Like one of Renoir or Murnau and Allen could potentially meet up in the finals. Whew.
I say we
Gonna be
give it.
some
I say we just give it all to David Lynch now. He's obviously gonna win.
That's the other thing. And then, arguably my favorite movie ever is Blue Velvet.
Oh dang.
Really? I didn't know that was your favorite movie ever, or one of your.
Arguably. I have a lot. Not arguably. It's definitely like top 5 for me though. Dictator, Sunrise, Kind Hearts and Coronets, and then like Annie Hall, probably my top 5. Off top.
So Annie Hall can't make it, is what you're saying. Woody Allen can't make it. Otherwise, you're just gonna vote auto Woody Allen.
Well, Derek, neither can Murnau. Neither can
Lynch, as you just said.
He'll definitely make the finals. He'll make the semifinals because they have Mulholland Drive above Blue Velvet though. So
Yeah.
Have you seen Mulholland Drive?
I have, but it's been a while, and I was not watching it.
Maybe
That
like
did-
you'll like it more than Blue Velvet.
Like Blue Velvet. Oh, and Rules of the Game. Oh, I like that movie a lot too.
What about Tokyo
Plot.
Story? Do you like Tokyo Story?
What's Antonina's number one? Oh, and I own La Ventura, so that'll be exciting whenever I
I've
get to
seen
that.
La Ventura.
Tokyo Story. I do not think it's his best.
Wow, you don't think it's his best? Dang.
No, I like Late Spring better.
Oh, you're talking
That's
about
very
Ozu. You think Late Spring's better than Tokyo Story? Okay.
Wait, Ozu has a movie called Late Spring.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty funny considering early summer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
next
Exactly.
one we're watching is an autumn afternoon. It's all about
Oh.
these. Yeah, I think they're
Really
actually
likes
like a
his-
trilogy.
Season. Well, if the other one was like early summer, that movie's gonna be really good.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Early Summer. Still in my
I was too.
still up there for me. Yeah.
When are we gonna? Are we ever gonna
Wait.
do rank all the movies again?
That'd be dope.
Rank all, but I think we'll definitely do like a top 20 list. I'm thinking,
Okay.
and even then we could maybe like rank all of them, but just not through the first whatever, however many.
Mm-hmm.
We 126. It was like the first 100 I could skim through.
Well, isn't no? Because
Then we're focused.
I mean, if we did a second episode, it would, or like a second ranking episode, it would be just as long as the first one, because half of the movies
First
were in that
62.
first round.
We're ranking all of them though. So yeah, sorry, 62 though. I did the math wrong. I thought we had 64 for some reason.
Well, I mean, it would be the second 62, and we've already ranked the first half, so we could just rank the second half separately. Like we wouldn't have to like.
It'd be fun to rank all of them though, don't you?
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
we've already. I mean, it would make sense if we like ranked it in respect to one another. But if we won't have to say things about those films that we've already ranked.
Yeah, it's true as well.
So we can like
I-
be like, okay, Barry Lyndon is number 52, and Early Summer is
Or I think
51.
in general, once again, like 62 through 26, we can kind of skim through. If there's one that's like interesting that pops out to us, we can talk about it. You know what I mean? But we don't have to like actually.
I think there'll be a lot of arguing. You say that, but then someone's gonna pull out a hot take, and everyone else is gonna be like,
You
"What?
mean
How can you
Caleb's
think
gonna
that?"
put something that he voted against above something he voted for,
Yeah. Something
and
along
then screw
those
over
lines.
Kurosawa?
I'm happy.
I
That
stand
was
by
not the
what I
better
said
movie.
in that episode.
Yeah, Matt was obviously a hater because he hates play adaptations to film, and Caleb
That's
just
not
dropped the
true.
ball.
That's true.
Anyhow.
There's like
Oh, yeah. Is the podcast over?
It can be
yes.
if that
we didn't
if
close
Matt,
it off, but it's definitely over.
No, Matt can do
We're
the
just kinda
outro now if he
bullshitting now.
wants to.
Watch more